Hey guys, welcome back to Interstage Window. I know we skipped last week, so it's been a minute, but we're back with a regular episode today. And today with me, of course, as usual, is Landon.
Hi, did you guys miss me? You should have.
I missed
I'm a
you.
doozy. Oh,
Yeah, I
good.
I missed you. I missed you, but we were, I was taking some well-deserved time off. So, took
Absolutely.
like a whole week break of not doing any of this kind of stuff, so it was nice.
We all deserve a vacation from aspects of our lives all the time.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that you took it, but I did realize how much I've been enjoying our little weekly chats
Oh my
because I was
gosh,
like,
me too.
"I miss it."
Yeah, me too, me too. So I did kind of miss it, but excited to be back this week for another episode. And today we're going to be talking about a bunch of tips and stuff like that for first-time moderators, right?
Yeah. We're gonna
Okay.
be discussing things like why letting go is necessary, some hard lessons that you have to learn when you start becoming a mod, how to build a good community and be a part of a good community. So I think all really important stuff.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we're going to take some time to break this down in like this more long form format because I know that when I look at like the videos on my channel, the moderator help videos, even though they don't individually have the most views, when it comes to my playlists, that playlist does really, really well, and I know a lot of people use that, so I know this is the type of information that a lot of people are looking for.
Yes, and I agree. And I think it's also something that it's one of those things that comes with practice, right?
Hmm.
With the same thing with RP. When you're writing, you get better through practice, but inherently you kind of can fumble around being a good RPer or at least a decent RPer without really having to do research.
Yep,
Being a mod, if you want to be a good mod, you have to learn how to do it. And sometimes that involves looking outside of the actions that you're doing.
yep. But before
So,
that, we want to start with favorite things, right?
yeah.
Oh my
Yes, tell me
gosh.
what is your favorite thing this week?
Okay. So, my favorite thing this week, like I've showed some of you guys that are in my Discord server, but if you're not in my Discord
Oh,
server, let me show you what I have spent like a ridiculous amount of time on since we last had our Interstage window stream. This on my phone. Oh my God, the iPhone does this now. Like my phone
I
is so
am.
aesthetic, y'all. Oh, hey, Vi. My phone is
Hey,
so aesthetic.
bye.
I was when I saw this update and saw what you could do. Like, I was transported back to my MySpace days. I was transported back to like editing my live journal, editing my Tumblr. Like, oh my God, it was such a joy. I spent a ridiculous number of hours making my phone look beautiful.
I am just laughing so hard because this was going to be my favorite thing too.
What?
Um,
Oh my God. I saw yours. You shared a screenshot. It looks so good. But so for those of you
yeah.
guys that don't know what you need to do to get to make this work is you got to first update to iOS 14. And then
Mhm.
you have to download an app called Shortcuts, which might automatically download, it might not. It's a default app, so it's supposed to automatically download, but it's not doing that for everybody apparently. And then you
Oh no.
also need Widgetsmith. So Widgetsmith is the other app that I downloaded, and with those three things combined, you can make like the most aesthetic phone. It's beautiful.
It is. It's like if MySpace meant Pinterest and
Yes.
baby and then put it on your phone home screen.
Oh my
And that's what
God.
it is. And I have ridiculous stuff. I made mine way more goth than I have been in a few years, but I'm just
Ooh.
like this is going. And by goth I mean it's very Slytherin aesthetic. But and also a little witchy because it's the haunting season.
Oh, I
Um
love that.
but my favorite widgetsmith, I just have to say, is it brings me much joy. It's this one of the small ones, and it shows you what position the moon is in right now. And
Yes.
it's just so pretty. Every time I look at it, I'm like, I have a little moon on my phone.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I used it. I used the medium size one, and one of the things that I don't like about this update is one of the things you still can't do is have a different background image for each page. So, but my page 2, I wanted to have like a more goth like background image, but I couldn't. So, I did
Mhm.
my best. But yeah, of course I have the moon phases. Like, I'll show you.
Yes.
I have the medium-sized
Oh,
one,
that's
but
so
still.
nice. I had the medium sized one, and then they did the update to have it as the small. And I was like, you know what? I don't need all the information with it, even though it is very useful. I
Yeah.
can click on it and get the information. I just want the moon.
Yeah.
And I don't have my camera, so I'll maybe find a way to post it in Discord.
Yeah.
But I have it above a like landscape photo of the Northern Lights that a friend of mine took.
Oh,
And I'm just this is witchy.
so good. Oh, I love it. I
hmm
think that's hilarious. We picked the same favorite thing.
I had a feeling that was what yours was going to be, and I was just like, I'm gonna do it too because it's so great.
It is so great. Oh my God. Well, okay, since we both had the same favorite thing, I can say one other thing that was really a joy since our last episode. Masked Singer is back, y'all. That is one of my favorite stupid shows. I love it so much.
Do
um,
you have any do you have any I having not watched the show,
mhm.
I've watched clips on YouTube, I know
Mhm.
what it is about, but do you have any theories as to who the celebrities are so far? I know that there's only been like one group that's gone.
Yeah, so they do in like just small groups. So I don't have any like really good guesses of who has shown up so far. Um
Okay.
but I did agree that like the I guess this is a spoiler for Mass Singer, so skip a few minutes ahead if you don't want to get your Mass Singer spoiled. But I did think that the dude they eliminated sounded like Busta, and so, I wasn't really surprised when he was revealed. The only thing that surprised me, and this is like a critique that I have of the show, it shows that it's kind of fake, right? It is kind of fake. And I know it's kind of fake because, like, let's be real, Giraffe should have been eliminated, and they weren't. Okay, they weren't. They were the
Oh.
worst, but I'm pretty sure, like, for some celebrities, they don't really want to do the show, but they're like, just do one episode, it'll be all right. And then they just get eliminated first because they didn't feel like doing more. You know what I mean? So, like, when they were like, the votes are in, and it wasn't Giraffe, like, I don't even remember, like, what bus. Oh, it was Dragon. And they were like, the least number of votes is Dragon. I was like, bullshit. Bullshit. And the same,
Oh.
yeah. So, and the same thing happened before, like, Gronk, the football player, was on a
Mhm.
previous season and he was awful and he wasn't eliminated first. It was like bullshit, you know?
Okay.
So just a little critique of the show. It's not really that real. It's pretty fake. And that's one of the ways that it's pretty fake. But I still really enjoy it. Like I love the silly stupid costumes. I love like the guessing game. Ken Jeong is hilarious.
I think the guessing game is great. And obviously, like I can't put myself in their position, but I'm like sometimes their guesses are so insane that I'm just like, can you please use logic? Like this does not sound like a white woman singing. This is definitely a black woman, people.
Oh my God, they do that all the time. When someone's voice is like clearly in a certain genre, right? And they
Yeah,
guess like a singer from a completely different genre. I'm like, do you have ears?
just because it was a cis male who sang the song does not mean it is still a man who's singing the song now.
Right? So
So,
that to me is really ridiculous. They do that all the time. But I think sometimes, like, this is another way that the show is fake. I think sometimes their guesses are not their real guesses. I think sometimes their
yeah,
guesses are whatever guess is entertaining. So I
that
think
makes
that's
sense.
what's going on there.
Yeah. I had heard through TikTok, again, having not watched this show,
I had heard
that
through
Lindsay
TikTok. That
Lohan
is like a cursed sentence right there. That is like a 2020 sentence right there. Okay, go ahead.
that one of the theories is Lindsay Lohan is one of the masked
Oh,
singers
yeah, yeah,
for this show.
yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that'd be interesting if she made her way back into like, national TV.
I mean, she could be. So, one of the things with this season, of course, is with everything going on and a lot of celebrities, their projects were canceled. I would not be
Mm,
surprised if there's some people that you wouldn't typically expect to be on the show because usually it's like C-list, D-list celebrities, which actually I guess Lindsay Lohan would apply to that. But I wouldn't be surprised if this year there's some like way more famous people than normal because normally it's mostly like D-list, C-list with like maybe a couple like for real famous people. It's usually like people that used to be famous, or it's people that like, need a jump start to their career, or they haven't released anything for a while and so they're on there promoting it, stuff like that. Um,
yeah.
but Lindsay Lohan would actually fit the typical type of celebrity that's on there. But I wouldn't be surprised if this year we get some way more famous people.
So this is slightly off topic, but this means another celebrity show came back in the 2 weeks that we've been away. Dancing with the Stars.
It did. I
Did
don't
you see
watch
who?
that one. I don't watch that one,
Okay,
but I heard Carol
I
Baskin is on it.
yes,
Ah!
she is. And
Oh my god.
I know that there are a lot of opinions about Carol Baskin, but like it just that is a lot. I was like, okay, good to know.
Shout out to any role players out there who have dared to use Tiger King people as face claims in their role play. You are the
Oh my
realist.
god.
Someone's done it. Someone's done it. You know they have.
Okay, but can you imagine someone being like, you know what, who I really want to role play? Joe Exotic. He's a character, right? He's enough of a not real person to be a character
Oh my
that
god.
I think I should just bring him into RPs.
Oh my god, that's like a whole
Someone
other thing that's not on topic for today, but maybe that's a future stream is talking about like face claims and celebrity culture and how that plays into role play because that is a
yes,
whole thing.
yes. I know we touched on it a little bit when we talked about representation, but I would love to talk about that more. Yes.
Yeah, oh my god. Okay, so new stream topic idea. Because I have thoughts. I have thoughts on using somebody like Joe Exotic as a face claim.
You would. Oh god. All right. Should we dive right in?
Yeah, actually, okay, let's be done with this. Let's be done with this rabbit hole of Mass Singer.
I could talk about Exotic and Carol Baskin all day, but I figured most people are like, that happened both 6 months and 36 years ago. So
Yeah,
like
probably over it.
so let's get into it.
Okay, so how are
Modding.
we starting?
Well, I think that we should start with the good before we go into the bad.
Okay.
So let's talk about how to be a good mod. What do you need?
Okay, so I feel like when it comes to being a good moderator, like the most important thing for you to do is be somebody that's really good at taking feedback. Um,
Mm.
because when it comes to like moderator skills, like it's all just conversations, right? Like it's all just conversations that you're having with your other mods, that you're having with your other players. Like that's what you're really doing. And I feel like if you are really good at taking feedback and recognizing like when you need to make an adjustment, everything else is like a gajillion times easier. Like if you can master that, then you can master also giving feedback to somebody else because you know how it feels to get feedback and what is easiest for you to receive, right? Like it makes it easier also when a player wants to argue with you about something that you're trying to get them to do, like because if you're somebody that's good at taking feedback, then you can try to figure out much easier if what they're saying has validity or if they're just being a jerk, right? So that's like my number one like skill, I think, when it comes to being a moderator is being good at taking feedback.
I think that is something that is extremely important. And like I said, with being a mod, it's a learned skill.
Mm-hmm.
You only get good at learning how to take feedback when you get feedback, when you
Yep.
constantly ask for it, when you seek it, when you've applied and had mods deny your application
Yep.
or had to critique things or had to change things that you learn that through practice. So make sure that you're practiced. I think you don't have to have like a huge resume most places to become a mod, but
You don't gotta
but
have nothing most places to become a mod. You just have to be there.
well, and I think also if you're an admin looking for mods, you need to look for people who can do that.
Oh yeah.
So I think that a mod would be better suited to know that be like, oh, that this person, yeah, I had to I had to work with them to get a character enough to fit into this RP, but they check all my other boxes versus someone that I haven't had that experience with. You
Mm-hmm.
that like even though that they had to work on it, that could be a positive for them,
Mm.
like in their box, if
Yeah,
that
no,
makes sense.
that's a good point. Like knowing for sure, like having somebody that you know how they react
Hmm.
when they screw up is really, really valuable. Because if you don't know that yet, when you're making someone a mod, like you might be in for a rude awakening the first time they screw something up.
Because I think that's the other important thing too is that like for being an admin, as an admin, you are also the mod of mods.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of times, like having not been one, but there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, Karen is definitely modding me right now. That's what she's doing.
You're not supposed to be able to tell.
I have worked with you long enough that I can.
Uh, I know a line that I use sometimes because I just did it. I just did it recently to somebody else. I don't think I said it to you. There was somebody else. I was like, just take some time to think about it. So
Oh,
when
I
you said
also
that, I
done
was flashed back to that conversation where I said that just recently to somebody.
you've also done like, I hate to put on this hat, but you've done that one to me. Where it's like, cool, 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 cool. So, yeah, that. So a lot of these lessons that we're talking about with mods definitely relate to admin, and I know that we're going to be saying mods a lot in this RP, but just know that like admin is doing this, but to an extra point to
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, no, I agree. And I think for this stream, what I really am keeping in mind, even though we're saying mods, because these tips are for mods too, what I'm really talking about is the admins, because I know that's the people that are seeking out this content. They're like, I just made an RP and I don't know how the hell to make it work. All I did was build a world, and now what do I do, you know?
I have ideas. What do I do with them? So
Yes.
yeah. I also think for being a mod, you have to know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So, um, in some RPs ask their mods to commit much more time, energy, this, that, and the other thing, um, towards the RP. And some mods or some RPs might be more laid back. It might be able to run itself. It really does matter the kind of RP that you're in and what that job pertains to. And before you say yes or no to being a mod, you need to know what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Because, like, what does it mean? Does me being a mod mean that I'm supposed to, watch the chat and, like, bonk people
yeah,
down if they get crazy? Does it mean that I'm supposed to contribute to the story differently? Does it mean that I have tasks like, actual tasks to do, like review applications or create graphics? Like, what exactly does it mean that's different from being a player? And that's going to
yeah.
vary based on the particular role play.
And for an RP, if you've been asked to be a mod because they need more people on the mod team because there's more players or whatever, there will be a lot of answers to that questions. The
We would
questions
hope
that you
so,
should
right?
ask, you'd have so. The questions that you should ask is, well, what is the task? What would you be expecting from me? What does that look like? What is the time commitment? And you don't have to ask it like it's a job opportunity because it's not. Like, right, we're all having fun and stuff like that. But you should have all that information so that when you sign up for it, you're suddenly not like, oh, they expect me to be on every day, all day, to monitor the chat or
Mm-hmm.
to do this. How many are, making sure you know how many, okay, we have to read over applications. How many on average applications do we get a week?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something like where it's a huge RP that they're getting, 4 or 5 applications a week? Or is it like, oh, once every other week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are great questions to ask. Like, if you're in the position where you're being asked if you want to be a mod, to even
Yeah.
know if you really want to be one, right? Like, do you want to take on the additional responsibility that they're putting on you? Like, and do you know what it is that you're getting into? I think that is super important because it's going to vary, right? Like, just because you've modded for like this one role play over here, that doesn't mean that this other role play with a different admin is going to work the same way because there is no central, like, this is how role plays work. Like, there is no rule book of role plays. They're
Yeah.
all different. They're all different.
Not
So,
not until Karen writes one.
oh my God. If I ever write that, like, y'all are under no obligation to follow. Y'all are under no obligation to follow any of my advice. It's just out here for you if you want to.
And I'll judge you if you don't. But that's me. Just kidding. Um, yeah, so exactly. It is all advice at the end of the day.
Yeah, but
But
I do think that, like, asking those questions, not just straight up saying yes or no, is going to be a better tactic if you are put in the situation where someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I need help. Can you, do you want to be a mod?"
yeah.
Trying to figure out, like, what that's actually going to mean before you say yes or no is going to be really important.
Well, and especially because it will change the dynamic of everything,
Mhm.
right? And we'll talk about the power dynamics. We want to dive deep into that. But it does. If you are a mod to an admin that you consider a friend, you do need like even though it's a lot of RPs it's like not that high of a requirement, there is that then like you need to be there to support your admin, right? Your mod as a mod, you need to be there to do what your admin asks you to do.
Mhm.
And that's going to change the relationship that you might have with that person.
Mhm.
And you need to keep that in mind before you say yes or no.
Mhm. Some people have
Um,
really specific reactions to being told what to do.
yeah,
So knowing what your reaction is to stuff like that is important, and thinking about that in your relationship to the admin is important.
yep. I also think that it is important to keep in mind, and this is something that I just wanted to mention, that building an RP is so much more work, in my opinion, than maintaining one for a
Mm.
mod. Yes, with like maintaining, you have, watching the chat, making sure dynamics are okay, making sure reading stuff that is going on, but world building and graphic making and all of the stuff that could come with what is it to set up to make a good RP is going to require a lot more time and energy than maintaining one or adding a few extra hours to your or whatever to your daily need to RP or manage the RP, if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's so funny that you say that, because I guess I like, yes, that you'd spend a lot, the world building, the initial world building and initial setup of a role play takes a lot of time, but I feel like the day to day maintaining a role play is actually harder. Like
Oh,
the idea that you have to like regularly do these tasks that might not be fun is way harder than sitting down for a couple of weeks and busting out some world building. You know what I mean?
I agree. So I think I said the wrong word. I did not mean harder as in like it is harder to do or maintain. It's more of like it requires more time and energy to build an RP than it is to maintain one
Well, that's
because
true.
you're right. There are things that you have to do every single week, activity check, making sure people are following the rules, keeping up with what's happening in the story, all of this, and some of that is fun, but some of it is not and can
Most of
get
it's not.
monotonous.
Most of it's just tedious. Like, let's be real.
Yeah,
Most of those
ex-
tasks we do for the benefit that we get later from having a good role play, not because those tasks are fun in the moment. They're not.
exactly. So it definitely yeah, so it definitely is harder to maintain an RP, but if someone is sitting there and being like, "Hey, you want to be a mod to this RP that I want to make," you need to know that a lot of energy is going to go into making that RP. It's not going to just be like, "Oh, poof, I'm in, things are already built," especially if it's a first-time admin.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to do a lot of the growing and figuring out as you go on the go, and it's going to take time and
Mm-hmm.
energy. And it's
Mm-hmm.
fun, and I love it. I love being part of setting up a new IP, but it takes more time and energy.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true. And I think it really depends on the admin, right? Like I'm sure that there are
Absolutely.
admins that make everything and they don't want any feedback and they don't want any changes, right? And so then you're not going to be
Mhm.
doing any of those steps. But there are going to be admins that do a lot more like what I do, where I just set up the absolute bare minimum, and then I'm like, okay, guys, let's go crazy. Let's add more. You know. So you do a
Um,
lot of work. But some admins are going to be like, this is my world, this is my precious. And they're going to already have it all done. So that, again, it just goes back to like what we were saying at first, where you just got to ask those questions. Like when someone's trying to offer you a moderator position, or when you're trying to go get a moderator position, make sure that you know what it entails.
yes. And this kind of also ties into that, but I'm speaking mostly to admin for this. Have jobs. Don't
Mm
just sit there and be like, "Hey, I want you to be a mod for my RP," and then be like, "You can figure out what you wanna do."
hmm.
No. Have a job in mind when you approach somebody. Sit there and be like, "Hey, you're really great at graphics. Can you make all of the graphics for all of the RPs from now on?" Or, "Hey, you're really good at character building. Can you build all of these characters?" Or, "Hey, let's do activity checks. You're free Monday mornings." Um, have jobs. Don't just be like, do whatever you want to do because then you'll be left with all the unfun stuff. And also, if you don't have a job, it's a lot harder for mods to stay committed.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. When it comes to like setting up a moderation team, knowing what you're responsible for is really key because if you don't make it clear, if there's like a task, right? If there's like a task that quote unquote everyone is responsible for, then no one is responsible for it, right? Like if everyone is supposed to do this task, what's going to happen is no one is going to do this task because a role play is a private club. It is not a job. No one is getting paid. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, nothing bad is going to happen to you. You know, there's no level of commitment that forces you to do anything other than your own personal enjoyment. So,
Mhm.
when you have a situation like that, if everyone is responsible for a task, you're guaranteeing that task is not going to get done, right?
Yep.
Like you need to have someone that is ultimately responsible for that task. Now, that doesn't mean that person always does it, right? Like I'm ultimately responsible for doing the activity checks on Monday mornings. But if I'm going to be doing something where I have no internet access on Monday morning, I'm going to ask somebody else to do it. You know what I mean? So it's not that Karen is always going to do it, but that Karen is ultimately responsible for it. And that means if I can't do it one week, it's on me to go find somebody else that can do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that will help so much in itself. Because, like, also, if you have jobs, it's one less thing of the weight that you have to worry about. Because as an admin, you do have to think about how is this RP going to continue to be run? How do you continue to do it?
Mhm.
And if you have, like, oh no, it is Karen's job to do this and Landon's job to do this, and I trust that they can do it, then that weight is lifted off admin shoulders, right? You
Mhm.
don't have to take up the mental energy to think about is it going to get done every
Mhm.
week?
Mhm. Yep. And it's like, cuz like we review applications. That's probably like the main moderator task that we do cuz we are very
Mhm.
blessed to have very good players and we really don't have to do a lot of the more annoying work. But the main thing that we do as a mod team in our role plays is to review applications and like every single mod doesn't have to review an application, but we have 4 mods currently, right? Which means at least 3 of them need to take a look at the application and approve it, right? So that's something that's kind of an everyone task, but like that application is just going to chill there until, everyone does it, right? And that is an expectation that we have set. So it's just making sure that like everyone knows when this happens, you're supposed to go do this. Winnie Chan has a question that I want to read out. I don't know how you guys find the energy to maintain an RP group that needs monitoring 24/7. My TN oh oh this is
The
Mutant Ninja
community
Turtles.
group.
My TMNT RP group meets more like a D&D session with everyone gathering one designated night a week. Yeah, a lot of role plays work that way. I would say what allows us and Landon, you can add to this if you have additional stuff. But what I say allows us to have a role play that kind of goes 24/7 is that the particular type of role player that I am looking for is an adult with other stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
They're like, a student in college. They have kids they're taking care of. They have a job that they go to 9 to 5, and so they're not going to be around 24/7. If someone who joins my RP is really expecting to be able to role play 24/7, they're going to be real disappointed because we don't have anybody that has that kind of time, right? So it's like 24/7 in air quotes, right? So there's going to be somebody posting every day, but it's probably going to be a different person and it's probably going to be not going to be all day long, and things aren't going to go so fast that we can't monitor it. You know what I mean? So I think it really, really depends on what type of role play you're running. If you have one of those super active, constant posting all the freaking time role plays, then in my opinion, you're gonna need lots of mods. How exactly you're gonna set that up, like I don't know because that is not my bag. I have no interest in running a role play like that. But I'm sure that the people that do run role plays like that probably have some tips on how they make it work. Personally, that's like overwhelming. I would not do that. So that's basically how I make it work with like a 24/7 group as an adult with very limited time.
I also think that we have been doing this long enough and our RPs are small enough
Mm-hmm.
that we can tell if we have a possible problematic person among us.
Yep.
And you can tell that without even talking about it, all the mods kind of get like red alert, red flag, head cocked sort of thing. And
Yep.
we're all more active during those times. And we're all kind of like, okay, what's gonna happen? Waiting for it. And so we might, because we've noticed and we just do this, we might log on a little bit more or be more active in the chat or be reading things more carefully because we have that sense. I attribute that to that we have great players in our RP
Mm-hmm.
that I don't have to worry about that except for once in a blue moon.
Yeah. We really don't. Like we're and I think that this kind of goes to a quote that Shadow's not here, but she had a really wonderful quote when we were setting up this episode. So she's another one of the people that does a lot of mod work in my role plays. And she says that mods for her are really like lifeguards. Like
Yeah.
they're not there to tell you what to do in the pool. They're there if they see you drowning to go get you out. Right? And I
Yes.
really think that that's what a moderator is. Like my job is not to go and make role play happen for you. My job is that if there is a problem, to step in. If you have a question, to help you get to the answer. My job is to, be inspiring, right? It's to toss out the pool floaties and make sure that they're all inflated for you in case you want to use them. It's not to tell you, hey, it's pool floaty time, go play with a pool floaty because you look bored. Like my job is not to do the role play for you. My job is to give you all the tools so that you can role play and be there if you're struggling. But you still got to
Yeah.
tell me you're struggling. Like you still need to signal to me that you're drowning, right? I'm not psychic. So,
It's also we also, I think, as mods, and maybe this is our mod style, but we allow our players also to hang themselves a little bit with the rope that we've given them.
yeah, they're allowed to screw
Um,
up. It's okay.
like, oh, here's a pool floaty, and don't think I don't see you like hitting other characters and other people's heads with it. I do see you. I'm not going to yell at you about it, but just know that I see you.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes it's
um,
not worth it, right? Like sometimes it's
oh
not
yeah,
worth taking someone to task over something. Like, okay, like everybody in our role plays as adults. So there is a level of like, y'all should be able to work it out. And if you cannot, then you should be big enough to use your words and let me know, you know?
yes.
So we've let people
Um,
screw up before and just like make their own solution. And even if we thought that solution to their problem was lame, it's whatever. It worked for them, so it's fine.
Yeah, and we've also sat there and as a mod team kind of been in our mod chat being like, "Do you see, Jimmy hitting so and so over the head with a pool floaty? Yeah, we do see that. We see him going towards the edge, and we're not going to say anything, but we all know that it's happening, and we all are keeping an eye on it."
Yep. And I mean
So I think,
sometimes and things do go too far where we do get people
oh
into
yeah,
DMs and say stuff like that, but it usually has to escalate to a certain point. We're not going to tell somebody the first time we notice them doing something that's not so great because everybody's an adult and nobody's perfect. So we kind of like I want to give our players always the grace that I would expect to have being given to me, you know?
also it's not my job on how you present yourself within the group dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get to, as a moderator, it is not my job to monitor that.
Yeah.
So if you want to be an asshole who's hitting everyone with pool floaties, I really love an extended metaphor. Can you tell? Um, then you can be an asshole who does that. I'm not going to stop you until it's impinging on somebody's game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for those people like we because our players are really really good and like for real like I know I say that a lot but I mean it for real like our players are really awesome.
Yeah.
They don't they don't hold back if somebody really is not fitting into the group and for the most part if we have somebody that the issue is just they don't fit in like they get the hint and they leave.
Yeah.
So we don't have
I
to
mean,
do anything. They just, it's the same exact thing as any other club. It's the same exact thing as any other club. If you join a club and you go a couple weeks and you realize, like, shit, no one in this club likes me, you just stop going, right? Like, nobody comes up to you and says, like, oh, by the way, Landon, we noticed you're really not getting along with everybody. Like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. Like, this isn't a job where there's some kind of job
Yeah.
requirement to get along with people.
No, and here's the other thing too. How well you get along with people will directly reflect the amount of threads you have.
Yeah, it
Because
will.
people don't like RPing with people that they don't like. And I'm not talking characters and I'm not talking not being friendly. I'm like, if I really dislike you and I don't trust your RP style, I'm not gonna RP with you.
Yeah.
Period, end of story.
Yep.
Um, I also to because I think we can end up talking a lot about all of this because it's all really important. I very briefly want to touch on building social dynamics that you want to see
Mm-hmm.
and how
Mm-hmm.
that is important as an admin when choosing your mods.
Mm-hmm.
Because if admins and mods are being problematic, then their people will be problematic.
Yep. Yep. This
That
monkey
is,
see monkey do. Even if you don't want
yep,
to be monkey see monkey do, even if you don't think you're monkey see monkey do, we all are, myself included. Like, everyone is like this. So, if you are doing the bad thing, then your players are going to do the bad thing, right? And I think that's important when picking mods. Like, there have been people in role plays that I loved. Like, I loved them. I want to role play with them. I want to ship with them. I think they're amazing, awesome writers, and I would never make them a mod. Because there's certain behaviors that they do that, like, it's fine if one or two people in the role play do it, but if everyone started doing it, like, that would be really bad. And, like, I don't say that as in, like, I expect perfection. Like, oh yeah, finally got him. Like, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. Nobody on the mod team is perfect. We all have things that we could do better, but I have to make a decision as an admin what negative behaviors I'm willing to somewhat tolerate and what negative behaviors I really am not willing to tolerate when it comes to choosing my mods.
yes, absolutely. And like, I think it's important to remember your mods are not going to be perfect, and it is the lesser of two evils sort of thing, to, like you were saying. But yeah, what kind of RP do you want to run? Do you
Yeah.
want to run an RP that the mods are going to be doing whatever they want and are kind of power hungry, or do you want run one with mods who are willing to disagree? And but because of that disagreement, that they're allowed to have communication and other options happening, and not everyone is on, they're not on different pages, but everyone can see a different perspective, and that allows players to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had situations where on the mod team, we didn't all necessarily agree and we still had to figure out how to make a decision anyway,
Yeah,
and I think there.
I think
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think that that's actually an important thing to have in an RP, is to make sure that your mods are not all agreeing with each other all of the time,
Mm-hmm.
because having a little bit of disagreement can push you to be better. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
it has to be total discourse all the time, but sitting there and being like, oh, they'll catch something if they don't like something,
Mm-hmm.
or if they think something needs to be changed because of that disagreement. I just wanted to say that as a important like admin thing.
Yeah, no, I think that is really important. It comes up for us like when we review applications, like because we have multiple people looking at the application, you might be the only one that noticed this one particular element of the app that's not quite right. And just because, other people have already said that they're fine and they're good, that doesn't mean don't bring it up, right? Like, I think you should still be bringing it up, and if you want a good mod team, you should still expect your mods to bring it up. Like, even if it turns out that that idea is wrong or dumb or whatever, like, it doesn't matter. Your mods should feel like it's okay to bring up something even if they don't think anyone else is going to agree, and that shouldn't destroy the whole team. Like, from doing this channel, I have people, that they come to me, they come into the Discord looking for advice with their mod teams and things like that. And I feel like, and we're going to get more into this when we talk about power dynamics, but I feel like for a lot of mod teams, they spend so much time like making sure that the mod team themselves isn't fighting. And that shouldn't
Oh
ever
my
be a
god.
thing. That shouldn't ever be a thing. Like your mod team should be disagreeing without hating each other. Like all the time.
Yeah,
It should be fine. Like that should just it just shouldn't ever be a thing that you're worried about. Like I should be able to have a disagreement or an argument with you about some point that we disagree on and then wake up the next morning and we're still friends. You know? Like it should never be a thing that there's
I
like drama in the mod team over a disagreement.
I have been very, very fortunate because of the mod team that I've obviously modded with the most is you, Naomi, and Shadow.
Yeah.
And I consider all of you guys real life friends.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
uh so I have never really been on a RP mod team where I'm even neutral to the people who are on the RP are on the mod team with me. So like this idea of there's drama happening just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what? I think it's okay that if you are even neutral to the people on your team, that's okay. You don't have to be the best of friends who constantly write with each other or have the history. But you can't hate each other
Yeah.
or want to be like toxic to each other
Well, you can't like
or
want to
anything like
undermine
that.
each other, you know? Like I
Yeah.
don't mean that you have to get along all the time. Like I don't think that's right either. You don't have to get along all the time, but you can't do things that are like, okay, like say that you um purported an opinion over something that I found super problematic, like super wrong, like to the point where I was like concerned about you or something like that. You
Yeah.
know, that should not turn into some kind of drama where now I am treating you different.
But Karen, it's the internet. And that's what people do.
Oh my god, I know, right? That is what people do. But I see it. I
Ugh.
see it on other mod teams in the type of questions people come to me with. And it's just to me like that is ridiculous. Like that is ridiculous. I should be able to at one time, you know, talk to you about some opinion that I think is problematic and also not have it turn into like, oh my god, I now have this campaign against Landon and I'm constantly talking about her. Like, no, I should be able to get whatever that concern is out of my system in one go and move the fuck on, you know? It's the internet.
Oh,
Oh, hey Kendra, so happy to have you.
you
You came
already
in at a
missed.
really fun time. Kendra's actually modded a little bit for me in the past as well. Not very much, but a little bit, so that she kind of knows my style. She's done enough where she knows my style.
Oh, I forgot about Kendra. I actually hated Kendra. So, like, obviously, I hated someone on the mod team. Just kidding.
Ugh.
Marry me. Sure did.
Wow.
um, yeah. So I think having I mean, you're adults, right? Hypothetically, I guess not everyone who's RPing is adults,
Yeah,
so
and
I
I'm sure
can't
that
say
that's
that.
part of the problem. Like some of these people are legit teenagers, and that's why they're
But like,
struggling.
and I guess this brings us to our third thing, kind of wonderful segue, which is communicate, right? Instead of
Yes.
being like, oh my god, Karen said this really problematic thing, and now I'm gonna have a campaign against her. Um, just be like, hey, I didn't really like that,
Yeah.
or just
Or
just
don't like if it, like you have to decide if it's a big enough deal to even say that, you know, like sometimes it's not even a big enough deal to even bring it up, but
yeah.
like if you cannot help yourself from acting on it, then for the love of god say something so that people aren't in the dark about why you're being weird.
Or you know what? Here's another wonderful thing. Um, go bitch to your friends.
Yeah, and then get the hell over
Right?
it.
Do the thing that we all do, and that is be like, oh man, this really pissed me off. I'm gonna go bitch to my friends and then feel better about it.
Yeah,
Like
well,
that's do that thing.
yeah, and do it if it makes you feel better about it. Like if you
Yes.
having that
Oh,
bitch fest
absolutely.
turns into some campaign against the person where you're like rallying everyone else like to be
No.
negative towards that person, then keep your mouth shut because that is wrong. Like that is wrong.
If someone comes to you and is like, this thing happened, and even if they're your friend, take it with a grain of salt. Perspectives. There are three sides to every story.
Right.
Like,
There's my side, there's your side, and then there's the truth, right?
yes, exactly. And it's like, okay, well, let's stop. But communicating with your fellow mods, and also, I mean, that's what most of the job is, right? That's
Mhm.
as a mod, that is 90% of what you're doing.
Yep.
Okay, 80% of what you're doing. 20% really boring maintaining stuff, and 80% of communicating either with your fellow mods or with the people in the RP.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and you gotta be good at it, right?
Yeah.
Or you gotta be at least willing to learn how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you have to necessarily be good at it at first, like, because you're not going to be, like, nobody is, right? Like, nobody's good at it at first, but, I feel like the people that are here, that are, like, watching my content, that are on my channel, that are, that are following me on Twitch, et cetera, like, you guys are doing a lot of the right things just by trying your best to learn and to grow and to, and to never stop changing. I think that that's a huge part of it. So you're not going to be good at first, but I think it's important to continue learning and continue being, patient with yourself. And if, when you do screw up, don't spend a lot of time dwelling on that. Just be like, damn, I sucked in that conversation. Let me do it better next time.
Yes. Um, and I think along with that, like the being honest of, hey, I sucked at that conversation, but honestly, and also being honest with yourself of, can I do this conversation? There
Yeah.
have been multiple times where I like, and I learned this from you, right? And I won't get into specifics, but there was this one time where we had a player who was messing stuff up royally in the game without permission, on the verge, like god modding stuff, and you turned to the mod chat and you were like, I cannot have this conversation with this person
Yeah, they were
because
because it had to do with
first
my character and I was so
it's
invested. I was so pissed.
fucking my character up. Yeah, exactly. And you knew to do that, right? You knew to sit there and be like, no, I can't actually effectively have this conversation. And I honestly can't, even though I want to, even though I want to be the person to like lay down the hammer, I can't do that. So can someone else do that?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
because I wouldn't have just bonked them. I would have like bashed their skull in, and there was like no way for me not to. Like I kept trying to get over it, and I just freaking couldn't.
and you have to be honest with yourself about that. And that's okay, right? We're human. If things affect us or change the game or get us angry, we're allowed to have emotions and change our behavior with people. Just because you're a mod doesn't mean that you have to like or be 100% okay with everybody in your RP.
Mm-hmm.
So, but being able to admit that and then ask for help is a huge part of being a mod team.
Yep.
To sit there and be like, oh, can I actually have this conversation productively with somebody? Or am I holding on to something? Or do I not have the time or energy? Or do I not even have the empathy to do it right now?
Yeah.
Um, all of that is incredibly important when it comes to the communication aspect of this job.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's all super valid. I mean, there's gonna be times where like you're not the right person to have the conversation, and then there's gonna be times where you are the right person to have the conversation, but you don't want to do it. So, I think that that's an important thing to be thinking about, like when you are going into those times where you have to have a conversation about like this player has screwed up, and I have to go like help them make a correction, like those are like that's the hard part, right? Like that's the hard part of being a mod is sometimes you have to have those conversations and kind of going in knowing if you're even the right person to have that conversation can be really valuable because you shouldn't be running in a role play by yourself. I'm sure some people do it. I could not personally imagine doing that. I don't believe you should be running role plays by yourself. So that's something that I definitely take into account. Is like, is this something that one of my mods could actually do better than me?
Yeah. And then of course, hopefully you've built that team that you
Hopefully.
have people that can,
Yeah.
right? That it isn't all on your shoulders and you're not running it by yourself. And
Hmm.
that you hopefully have people who will support you and will go, of course we understand why you can't have this conversation. Let us help you.
Yeah. And I think also when it comes to like some of this stuff, like it takes time. It took us
Oh,
a lot of time to build up to where we're able to do all of these things and communicate properly and work well together. We've been doing it for what is it now? 7, 8 years, like a long time. So, like these tips that we're giving for you guys as like first time mods, it's not tips that I expect you to go implement immediately. It's tips that you should be working towards over a period of time. So just something to keep in mind. Like if you're like, oh my God, I can't do that. That's going to take forever. Like, yeah, it's going to take forever. It took us 7 years. So, you
Yeah,
know,
and also as a mod, I think it is important that when you are having that time and you have had that practice, to recognize the change within yourself.
yeah.
There was a point in time that I hated having any sort of confrontation with players. That I didn't like it, that I didn't like being like, hey, this isn't okay, or trying to get something, or trying to make someone look at something another way. And now it's my favorite thing to do. Um,
Well, you practiced it a lot. I mean, you've practiced
but
it so much
exactly,
at this point.
you practice it, and you also recognize that, like, that's the other thing too, is that you have, as a mod, as a pure person, you have to recognize that your practice does pay off, and that things do change, and things also change depending on the dynamic. We when that first happened, when I first disliked it, a lot of people within our group were 16, 17, 18 years old.
Yep. So of course you
Um,
disliked it because it was really annoying.
because like because there wasn't a lot of change to be had. Talking to an adult, much different.
Yep. Yeah.
Talking to as an adult to another adult, even more different.
Yeah.
It's that kind of stuff that you have to, as a person, and as you get to grow as a mod, you have to recognize that you are growing,
Yeah.
and that you're not, you are doing better with every conversation, every result, every closed RP, opened RP is making you a better mod.
Yep. Absolutely.
Um, so I think that that is kind of what we had about how to be a good mod.
Yeah.
Should we dive into some of the like the two, I think, important pieces of being mods that really are difficult?
Yeah. So we've got kind of two things that we really want to spend some time on, spend kind of the last half of this stream talking about. The first one is power dynamics, and the other one is the power of letting go. So I want
Yeah.
to I want to start with power dynamics first,
Yeah.
and I have a quote that I copied. And Landon, if you could read that quote first, and then I have a few things to say on it.
Yes. So the quote is that although the cliche says that power always corrupts, what is seldom said is that power always reveals. When a man is climbing, trying to persuade others to give him power, concealment is necessary. But as a man obtains more power, camouflage becomes less necessary.
Yeah.
Robert A. Caro. Caro?
Yeah,
The,
Caro, I think. I think.
the
Yep.
passage of power.
Yeah, the passage of power. So Caro, I think that's how you say his last name. Now I'm not so sure. Anyway, sorry if
Sure,
I'm
Caro.
saying it wrong. He has a lot of wonderful writing on the nature of power, and kind of how people gain and wield power that I find really inspiring and illuminating. So if you guys are interested in those sorts of topics, look him up. His books are great, and read more into that. But the reason why I find this quote so inspiring when it comes to power dynamics is one of the things that I watch first time or newer moderators and admins do in a role play is they get that little taste of power and they go fucking bonkers. So I think that what this quote really says is it's not that power corrupts, it's that because once you have power, you don't have to conceal your true desires, and all of those true desires suddenly come out. And what this means for somebody that's a first time moderator is that you might learn some really uncomfortable truths about how you really feel about things that you're going to have to tackle. If once you get power, the first thing that you do is say, I am the one in power. You have to do what I say because I'm in power. Like, that feels awful when someone does it to you. And when you go do it to someone else and then later you realize you've done it, like, that feels like crap. And you're going to have to kind of wrestle with that and kind of figure out what that means for you. Because what's really easy to do when you're in that situation is to start to think about how it's everyone else's fault. Well, if they would have just done what I said, then I wouldn't have had to get mean about it and da 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 da, whatever. Like, we've all thought these thoughts, we've all done these things, you know. So at some point you have to reconcile that, like, you were the bad guy. And I think that's really really hard. So, when you're being a mod at first, I think it can be really important to pay attention to yourself and how you're reacting to things, um, because what you do might really surprise you.
Yeah, it's I think a part of me sits there and goes, it's a little funny to talk about this because, RP. And
Like it's not that
power
serious.
and the amount of power that you actually are being wielded is
Like
not a
none.
lot.
It's like none. But it feels like it. It feels like it's a lot, you know?
It does. And it is a lot, right? And especially if you're I think especially if you're admin and you get to make the rules and you get to have the law of the land. You
Yeah.
really do. And you can be as strict or as loose as you want to be. It really will show you that. It will also show you how forgiving you can be, how understanding you can be. Because like if people mess up, what is going to be your reaction to people messing up?
Mm-hmm.
How often do you call strikes? How many strikes do people get? All of this is part of that and is stuff that if you've never had that sort of control before, you will learn because you'll have to, right? Because people
Mm-hmm.
will make mistakes and break the rules. And you will have to either figure out, okay, do I bring the hammer down? Do I just remind them of the rules or do I let it go?
Yep.
And you will make that choice either consciously or subconsciously.
Yep. Sometimes I feel like it's subconsciously at first because, like, one of the things that I see with newer mods is that they come in and they think like I've been in a bunch of crappy RPs. My RP is not going to be crappy because I'm going to make sure people do this, this, and this. And they think about it in those terms instead of thinking about what systems can they create to encourage the correct behavior. You know, they just think about the punitive systems that they can create to punish when people screw up. And I don't think that you get a good role play that way. I think you get a good role play by encouraging the behaviors you want instead of punishing the behaviors you don't want. Did I hear punishment? Yeah, you did, Sasha. You're here for the power dynamics part. So I
You
think
love it,
and
Thompson.
and I think that our good morning. I think that our society primes us for thinking about, okay, when this bad thing happens, what am I going to do to mitigate it? Instead of thinking about this is the good thing that I want to happen. How do I make people do the good thing? You know, and I feel like those thoughts set up role plays for failure where it's like it's just not necessary. It's not necessary, and
Yeah.
um, and so when it comes to those power dynamics, I think it's much easier to think of yourself as that lifeguard than to think of yourself as, you know, judge or jury or executioner.
Yeah, so to go back to what you were saying as like society has primed us to this, I 100% agree. Because if you look at our culture, you think about, okay, if I break the rules, I go to jail or I pay a fine,
Yep.
depending on your
And therefore, I'm
skin
not going to
color.
break the rules. You don't think
Therefore,
about it in
I'm not going
terms of like stealing is going to hurt this person, so I'm not going to steal for
to.
them. You think about it in terms of if I steal from someone, there I'm going to be punished, so I'm not going to steal. You know?
So I think it is a very natural response to go thinking, "Oh, what is the punishment?" Right? Because of how we are raised, but also because anything else is invisible. Unless you're actually giving reward stickers, uh,
Gold
or
star
like
for role play. I
gold
mean, some role plays
stars.
have those types
Yes,
of systems.
I mean, absolutely. And you know what? They work. There's a reason why first graders love stickers is
Yep.
because they are trained to love stickers. But any other kind of form of punishment or reward is invisible other than direct punishment, other than you break the rule, this is the result.
Hmm.
And so when you are forming your RP and you haven't had experience in a leadership position or you haven't had, you know, any sort of education like classes as far as like learning how to set up a classroom and stuff like that, because that's where I learned most of my stuff. Um, you are going to think automatically, oh, punishments is the only sort of response to these sort of things.
Yep. Yep.
And it's not.
It's not.
But yeah, and you know what? And how and ways to do that, ways to like have rewards is we have levels, right? The more you participate in the RP, the higher levels you become.
Man, and some people
And
get
a bot
obsessed
does
with those freaking levels.
well, listen, we're not calling Sasha out, but um,
You're only doing that because you really should be calling yourself out, but you see Sasha in the chat.
I don't know what you're talking about. I am not currently. I don't even know where I'm actually at. But I what? Listen.
Hey, if you weren't dealing with all of this school stuff, you would, like, let's be real. Let's be real. That's
I'd
what's
still
caught
be
you up right
toxic.
now.
Listen. Why
I,
call myself out when I could call others out?
oh my god.
Um,
I'm sorry. Did I totally make you lose your train of thought?
it's fine. It happens. It wasn't going anywhere interesting anyway. Um, but yeah, basically, we punish, and that's why I think it's natural. I don't think we should beat ourselves up for sitting there and wanting to go to the punishment aspect first, because I think a lot of people look at that and be like, "Oh my god, that's so bad," but it's not. It's natural. That's all.
hmm
That was what that long rant was.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is natural, and so like we have to actively work against doing that. And it's not easy. Like it's not easy. Like so many first-time mods think that I'm just going to have a rule for everything, and when people break the rules, I'm going to like lay the hammer down, and that's how I'm going to run my role play, and if I do that, nothing bad is going to happen. And they find out very quickly that that is not true, that they're just stressed out all the time and they don't understand why no one does what they want them to do. And it's like they don't think about how, like, when you were in those bad role plays where you were punished constantly, did it make you do what you were supposed to do? Like, no, it made you go leave and start your own role play, obviously, since that's what you're doing now. And so I think when it comes to like those power dynamics, and you suddenly find yourself in the position where you have the power and you can make a role play that's like your ideal role play, you cannot do a role play by yourself. You still have to have
Yeah.
other people or it's not a role play. So it's really important to make sure that you're not spending too much time on like making people walk down this narrow path, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be choosy about when you step in and actually enact a punishment. And when I say a punishment, like I don't necessarily mean like a strike, although those are things that you can do. I don't necessarily mean kicking someone out of the role play. Those are things that is something you can do, but those are more extreme. I mean even just like DMing someone to bring up the issue. You know, sometimes an issue is not that big of a deal, and yes, they technically broke a rule, and yes, they technically did this, that, or the other, like whatever it was that they did, but like sometimes it's not worth it. Like sometimes just you just need to get over it. And that's like a big piece of advice I have. Like sometimes you just need to
Get
let
over it.
the chat play out. Like sometimes you just need to let it go, and let you know everyone that's involved in that particular scene or that's involved in that particular out of character conversation, just let them work it out, and they'll work it out and it'll be fine, and you don't even have to step in, you know.
Yep.
And I know that I come from a very privileged place saying that because I have a role play full of really good people that are adults. So I can say that and it works. If you're running a role play full of teenagers, I know that this sounds like a pipe dream. Um, but you know, but you know, I think that like even if you have some teenagers in your role play, you can still do something like this. Like it doesn't have to be this way, you know, like people mostly will work that shit out if you let them.
Hmm. Yeah, or I mean, or it'll work itself out and someone will leave.
Yeah. Like maybe they're just
You
going to
know?
decide like this is too much for me and they leave and okay, problem solved. Now this person I don't even have to worry about them anymore.
And yeah, it sucks, and you don't want people leaving your RP, but at the same time, like they were gonna leave anyway. If it was a conversation with one person that was just working it out, or something that wasn't happening right, and they got upset about it enough to leave, they were going to leave anyway.
Mhm. Exactly. Laura has a good question. What are some indicators that it
But it's
won't work itself out? So when I see like an out of character, like I'll use an out of character conversation as my example. When I see a conversation going around in circles or a conversation come up over and over again, those are when I think like okay, like we really need to step in and take some mod action. Like I need to act as a mod, not just as Karen. Because when you see like the same conversation coming up over and over and over again, um, obviously something deeper is happening. that sometimes has nothing to do even with the conversation that's going on, that you need to step in and figure something out. Or if you see a conversation going in circles where like progress is not being made in that conversation, then maybe you need to step in. Also, I will step in if someone legit asks me to. Like if a player DMs me and is like, this shit is insane, I'm freaking out. Okay, obviously I need to step in because they told me to. And I try to do what I can to have a good relationship with my players so that they feel like it's okay to DM me those type of things, and that I'm not going to like freak out on them or make it worse, you know? And that does take time and trust to build up. So I would say those are the three instances where I will typically decide like, okay, I have to step in from a mod perspective and and do something with this situation.
I wanted to highlight something you said, and you said I need to stop this not as Karen but as the mod.
Yeah.
And I think that that brings so much power, like, and that's a tool that mods have that I don't really see used a lot, or at least I don't see, or I at least don't think it's being used a lot, and maybe because it's being used accurately. But you have a lot of power as just being a mod presence without having to go put on your mod hat. And
Mm-hmm.
so if something is happening in the chat, you can steer the conversation in a very political sort of way. Or you can like say something that will make something stop without it being like, hey, I'm the mod and this needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sorry, I saw my name in the chat.
Well, it was funny. You don't see it used well. I think that is a little bit more accurate.
That is
You don't
probably
see it used well in many role play spaces. We see it
no.
used very badly.
But that is a power and a tool that, if practiced enough and used well, can be very effective.
Hmm.
That you sit there and you can play that, you can play the mod card or at least hint towards the mod card without alerting anybody that the mod card might be being played.
Yeah, no, I think that that's true, and I definitely do that. Like anybody that's worked with
Oh
me
yeah.
long enough knows that I do that all the freaking time. God dang it, I'm talking so much. I'm doing bad at this guy. I do it all the freaking time. You know, where I say something like as Karen, and people are like, oh. Maybe I need to calm the fuck down, actually. Karen thinks this is chill. Maybe I should chill the fuck out, you know? And it's just, and they only think that because I'm the admin. If I was anyone else, they would just be like, whatever, that's just Karen's opinion, you know? But because I inherently have a little bit of that power, and like, I'm like, this is chill, this is whatever, they're like, oh, maybe this is chill, this is whatever, I'm cool now. And that's all it takes.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good
And
way
it,
that you can still allow people to have conflict and feel safe having conflict in those types of conversations without freaking out and it becoming like a big deal is for you to engage calmly in disagreements and for your players to see you engage calmly in disagreements, you know, and then that makes them feel safe that when they disagree with something that they can do so in a way that's not going to make them panic.
and I think that also kind of plays into the, like, how do you know something won't work out, is if you play that card and you know you can play that card well and it is ignored or not listened to, you can tell that it's escalating quickly.
Yeah, like if they're still freaking out after I've kind of said my like, you know, this isn't a big deal, like it's fine, you know, whatever it is that I
Yeah.
choose to say to convey that, and then they're still freaking out, then maybe I need to DM them and be like, dude, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? Like, did something happen? And you know what I found 9 times out of 10 when I send that type of DM? What they're freaking out about has nothing to do with the present conversation. There's like some other thing unrelated going on. Either like they're mad about this other unrelated roleplay scene, or they're mad about something in their real life, or they just don't like this particular person and they can't get a grip. You know, it usually has
Well,
nothing to do with the actual conversation, you know?
right. Like that is so common because as a
Yeah.
human, if you're trying to suppress something, it's going to come out one way or another, and it can come out that you're not sleeping well. It can also come out to venting to your friends, and it can come out to being a bad role player. It's any one of those three.
Hmm.
um, it will come out, and sometimes as mods, we have to deal with people, treating us a little bit like therapists sometimes. Um,
Sometimes. No, again, we're really lucky. Our group is really good, so I really don't have to deal with that a
oh,
lot. But it's come up. It's come up a few
I'm
times,
just
and I'm sure it will again.
And also I like, because I'm nosy as fuck, I really like people too. So please, please, please be a therapist. I'm not going to give you my number, but find me on Discord. Thanks. Um,
So, anyways, if you're one of our players and you're having some kind of drama issue, message Landon. Apparently, she
let
wants to
me
handle that.
know. Um, anyway, I did a hair flip, just so y'all know. You
I
can
felt
envision
it.
it. Thank you. Okay, so I think it's important also to discuss two ways that this like power control can also come out. And we kind of hinted around it without saying it, but the first one is rules, 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 rules.
Hmm.
If your RP has so many rules that no one can remember what all the rules are, you're being a little too controlling.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
like,
saying.
and I've seen those role plays where they'll have like a mile freaking long rules that like codifies every single possible insane
Yeah,
situation. And it's like,
yeah.
oh my God, how many times has this come up that you felt like you needed a rule about it? Holy crap.
Once. It
Yeah,
came up
once.
once and they didn't like it. And so they made it into the rule. And now it's just too many rules that people don't read the rules. They do a control F for any sort of password or passcode that you have, and they don't actually read the rules.
Oh my
That is how you
God.
know you have too many rules.
Oh my God. So I have a little aside about that. A little aside about that. I
Yes.
hate passwords and rules. I freaking
Oh,
hate
it's too
passwords and rules.
You know why? Because
It's
it
the
does control
worst.
assignment.
It's the worst. Okay, Sasha says, have never read a rule in my life. I know like
We
you're
can tell
half
about that.
I know you're half kidding, half serious, but big same. Like, I know how to conduct myself. I literally, when I am joining something, I skim the rules. I don't read them, and I don't think I'm unusual. Like, I think that's what everyone is doing, and maybe that's very egotistical of me. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think it's true based on the behaviors that I see from others. I think it's true. And like I just skim them. I skim them for the specific pieces that I need, like how often are our activity checks or whatever, stuff like that. What is their strike system like, but I don't read the rules because I know what I'm doing. I don't need to be told don't god mod. I don't need to be told be nice. I don't need to be told don't be a bigot. Like I know how to conduct myself. Like don't tell
And
me.
frankly, and if anything about my personality is breaking the rules, then I don't want to be there.
Bingo. Bingo. Like, if the rules tell me to do something that's not me, then I'm not going to stay anyway. So, what the
Yep.
hell is the point?
I am not going to be unkind. I am not going to be a bigot. I am not going to be whatever. I am just going to control find the passcode.
Right.
That's all I'm
Like,
going to
and so those passwords are so stupid. Like,
They are.
I have never been compelled to read the rules because of a password. Like, it's just one extra thing for me to go
Yep.
find. It takes an extra 2 minutes. Like, that's all you're doing is wasting 2 minutes of my time.
So here's the hot take. If
Like, it's
you have
just
a
dumb.
password on your rules, you have too many rules. That is all. That's the hot take.
Yeah, that's my hot take too. Like honestly, that is how I feel. And like it's just too much, like what you said. If I can't follow the rules, I'm not going to stay anyway. So what is the point of me spending time to read rules that take 15 minutes to read? Like your rules should take me 5 minutes to read tops. If it takes me longer than that, you got too many rules. Like and
Yeah.
that's what like my skimming self, you know what I mean, looking for specific
Yep.
particular rules that I need to know about, such as like your activity checks. Like obviously everyone does those differently. I need to know what those are. Like obviously I'm going to look for that rule, right? But I'm not going to read your
Also,
rules that are like be a nice person. Like I'm going to do that anyway, and if I'm not, I'm
okay.
either not doing it on purpose or I'm just not compatible with you guys.
Also on an aside,
Yes,
sorry,
you're good.
you said something that made me so angry, and it was about activity checks.
Ah.
Mad mod teams, stick to your activity checks. If you are gonna say that you have activity expectations in the rules and activity requirements and checks, do it.
Oh, you're talking about like role
Because
plays that have activity checks but they never do an activity check.
yes, and I'm not talking like, oh, if you've gone, a week without, because we do that, right? We'll sit there and be like, oh, you got a week without posting, and sometimes it'll be more than a week that we'll be like, oh, this person hasn't posted in a while.
Well, sometimes
And
I'm
I'm
not
not saying
super
that you have to
strict
keep
because
track of every.
I mean, sometimes I'm
Yeah,
not super strict
like,
because I know why. Like that person DM'd me about like I don't know their grandfather died or something, and like so they didn't come back from their hiatus exactly when they said they would, and maybe I give them an extra week to be nice, But that's just because I understand shit comes up. It's not that I'm not going to
life
activity
happens.
check them.
But if you're sitting there and being like, we are super strict about activity, and if you don't like do activity every 3 days, then we're gonna do an activity check on you, and then you never once do an activity check the entire 3 months that I am there. Ooh, anyway, that just
Yeah.
makes me so mad.
No, it frustrates me too. And we've been in role plays that are like that before. And the reason why it frustrates me, at least in my experience, this might be unique to my experience, right? But in the reason why I know they're not doing activity checks is because the mods aren't keeping up with activity. Like, if
Yes,
your mods are not keeping up with activity, your mods need to be activity checked. Like, come on. Don't just not
I
do
am
activity
activity
checks.
checked. That's how you do it.
Yeah, like, I mean, sometimes your mods are going to end up on activity checks and it's not the freaking end of the world, you know? So that is what
Uh,
it is. Oh, I see
it's
there's some
true.
messages in the chat about it too. So Kendra says, I also appreciate the mod showing up on the checks. Yeah, exactly. If they're up for activity check them. And Sasha says, yeah, now you said it. Yeah, because that's why they're not doing them. They're not doing them because one of the mods isn't meeting them, you know?
Which is so stupid.
Yeah, it's so
And not
stupid.
like not meaning it, but like the fact that that is what is, refraining them from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or it also speaks to an unorganized mob team, right? I
Yeah.
also think that that is something that it was like, oh, who wants to do activity checks?
Nobody.
And nobody wants to do it. Thank you, Karen. I love you so much for doing it every week. Um,
It's a sacrifice I make. It's one of it's
because it really does better RP.
it's
But
one of
yes,
it has to be done. It has to be done and I don't mind the tedious shit, so I do it. Like that's what that boils
um,
down to.
yes, and I very much appreciate it. But if no one is doing it in the mod team, you have an unorganized mod team, which goes to show that this RP I don't think is going to last very long.
Mhm.
Because that's also a hint. If a mod team is unorganized, the RP is doomed to fail.
Pretty much. Like you got to have some level of organization. I mean, you don't have to like run it like an army battalion or something. Like you don't have to be crazy.
Oh,
But like
absolutely not.
but like you have to have some level of organization. Some level of
Yeah.
organization or it's just not going to work out because people aren't psychic. If you don't communicate and you don't get organized, then nobody's going to know what the hell's supposed to be happening.
Yep. And I don't, and like I said, I also understand that sometimes real life gets in the way and things do become unorganized or people get busy or the mod team isn't able to keep up to what they were before.
Mhm.
But there still should be some level of like consistency. And if you are promising that in your rules and expectations from your players, that consistency, and then not providing it as a mod, it's a red flag for me.
Yeah, it
So
gets
keep
really frustrating. It gets really frustrating.
so I very quickly also wanted to mention the other power play that I've seen mods do, and that
Mhm.
I'm gonna be honest, me as a mod has been tempted by once or twice.
Oh my, what is this?
And it is the God mod, which
Oh.
is dropping plot points that only help yourself and your characters while fucking over the rest of the RP.
Oh my god, I've
Um,
seen that. I've been in a role play where someone did that to me and it was like, what
yep,
the hell? You probably even know which one I'm talking about.
I am. um, where I like, don't get me wrong, there are times where I'll sit there and be like, you know what would be really, really great right now for my characters? An event that would just fuck up everybody else's story, but it would be so good for me. Um, you can't do that.
Mm-mm.
You can't, right?
Mm-mm.
You are a mod for other people, which means that your events and the things that you are doing for the RP has to be RP wide and has to benefit most RP players.
Or like affect them in the
Yeah,
same way, you know? Oh,
and it
Sasha
can't.
wants an example. Girl, you know we're not going to name names on here. We don't do that. But I will say that the example that I'm thinking of was a role play that okay, I'm going to say something. It might sound harsh to your ears, Landon, because you're going to know which one I'm talking about.
I
But
know.
it was a role play that literally only existed so that these two specific people could do this one particular ship. They didn't care about Jack Ells. It's the truth. They
No,
didn't. And
makes
so
sense.
every time, except for the one particular type of event that was just for funsies, when it was like a real event or plot drop type thing, it was always about their characters and what was going on in their section of the map because this map had multiple sections, right? But it was obvious that they only cared about their specific section. and it drove me up the wall. Literally only stayed in that role play because you were in it and because Shadow was in it, and I thought you guys were pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh god, it was interesting being on a mod team with that. Anyway, um
Like, am I
oh
wrong? Like, is my memory like wrong though? Am I being too harsh, or was that pretty much the
no,
case?
I was the so I didn't even think of that one until you started saying it, and then I was like, "Oh my god, you're right." I was thinking of one of the ones that we were in at the same time as Low,
Mm-hmm.
Looh.
Yeah.
Um, and that their plot drops were very much like you are not taking into consideration what everyone else is doing.
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
but it's fine. But that one is actually a much better example. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you are so hyper focused on what you are doing and you are not up to snuff about what your other players are doing, you need to be careful with the events that you drop then because you don't really want to god mod players, right? As a mod, you have a certain amount of power to change the game and do stuff that does mess up people's plans or the direction they thought they were heading in.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be careful with that power. I'm not saying that you have to cater to every single person's plot or what they might do with their futures, but you do have to keep in mind that people are playing in your game and you can't go mad with power with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, that's part of what makes roleplay fun is that emergent storytelling where, sometimes things happen that you didn't plan for and now you have to figure out what to do with your character, because of them. And I think that's really
Absolutely.
fun. So I do think that you don't have to take that super seriously. But like when every single event affects your character and like your character's, partner, and the events never affect this other group of characters over here, like that's really suspicious.
Yeah. Or if you're like the other one too is if you know doing things like, oh, I want to play a vampire werewolf ship, so all of a sudden everyone died and there was like vampire blood in the water supply. Literally just coming up with something on the spot. It's terrible, but doing that.
I don't
That
know, I
messes
could
with
see it.
everybody who drank that mess with everybody who drank water, right? Like that and that is it really is obviously directed towards one specific thing that you want to happen, but need a whole world thing to happen. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just not how the game should be played.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So don't be that mod either. And
Yep.
those I think are the two big power dynamic sort of things that I wanted to touch on.
Yep. And I
Um,
and I want to kind of direct everyone's attention back to that quote that we shared at the beginning.
yeah,
Like, if you are a first time mod, you're going to learn some uncomfortable truths about yourself and how you operate and how you really feel. And so like if you're hearing these things and you're like, "Oh, I've done that." Like it's not the end of the world. The advice still is do better next time. The advice is still like it's not the end of the world if you did this. Like most people are super forgiving and will allow you that grace and that time to do better next time. Like most people aren't going to like bail on you instantly, right? Like you're gonna get chances. So I say this to make sure that people aren't feeling discouraged by hearing some of this stuff, that realize that they either do this stuff or have done this stuff. Like don't turn that into like, well, God, I'm an awful mod and maybe I shouldn't be a mod. Like, no, that's not the case. It's just that you need to spend some more time growing in your own self-awareness and in your own personality. Like that's what it means, and
yeah.
it just takes time. It takes time for all of us.
Also, I think it's important to remember that if you are the admin of the mods and your mod team isn't working, you need to be honest with that.
Mhm.
Even if you are friends with everybody and you're like, God, these are two of my best friends and we've been writing together for ages, or we just met and we love each other, who knows? You have to be honest with them. You have to be able to sit there and say, hey, this behavior isn't good, or this is no longer working,
Mhm.
and things need to change.
Yep. Yep.
That is part of your responsibility, and you have to keep that in mind. And hopefully, you've built a relationship with the people that you are able to, get over that. But also, I mean, it is something that is important to remember
Yeah,
that that is your
I do have to say that that is probably my least favorite part of being an admin
Oh,
is when
nice.
I have a mod where I have to tell them to cut that shit out when they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. But it happens, and the thing is that when you have that trust built up and they've seen how you interact with the players and things like that, at least in my experience, I don't know, like maybe you guys are rock stars or something, and this isn't normal. But in my experience, like you guys have always like handled it with grace. You know, like I've never personally been in a situation where I had to take a mod to task and they fought me on it. And I think that the reason why I've never been in that situation, or I assume the reason why I've never been in that situation, is because you guys have all seen all the thought and stuff that goes into it when I send that type of message to a player. So you know where that's coming from. And that goes back to like being a good communicator, right? So because you guys know that, because you guys see that, you're able to make the assumption that if Karen is telling me cut this shit out, like there's a good reason for it. She's not just being a meanie butthead, you know. She has some reason, and if I don't understand, I need to ask, you know, not just be petulant about it.
No, and I mean, I also think how you approach it too, and it's how you taught us to approach it, or at least me to approach it. You give reason. You don't just sit there and be like, "Hey, you can't do this anymore," or "Hey, this isn't okay," or "Hey, knock this off." You sit there and you go, "You need to do this because of this, that, and the other thing."
Yeah.
And then you sit there and you go, "Oh yeah, no, that obviously makes sense. It's not just because you hate me. It's because there are reasons." And I think you also allow for that back and forth too. Like if I ever had an issue, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if I ever had an issue with you, I would be able to approach you and say, "Hey, I don't think that this is good for the RP or good for this dynamic as far as mods go or anything like that." That communication line isn't one way.
Yeah.
And as mods and as a team, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
Yes,
Yeah.
as admin, you are in charge of us, and you are our mod, but it's still a team. Just kind of like with the RP, if there are things that are not working in the RP and you want to bring it up to and you're a regular player and you want to bring it up to a mod, you can bring it up to a mod. Hopefully, there is that relationship and trust built within the community that
Mm-hmm.
you guys are in,
Mm-hmm.
that you do feel comfortable doing that. And then something might change, something might not change, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, if you have those good communication skills, if you're good at taking feedback, then you should be able to have those conversations without it totally destroying the dynamic, you know, between the
Yeah.
two people, right? And like that's the hope. The hope is that you're able to have those conversations, and regardless of the result, that it doesn't like cause a bunch of chaos, right?
Yep.
Yep. So I
And
just
go ahead.
Oh, so say so I just feel like, you know, when it comes to like the admins having to an admin having to like go talk to one of the mods, um it does good to make sure that they have seen your behavior and how you speak to the players, and that you don't really do it any differently to them. So like Landon talked about a second ago, like I always give reasons, and I do always give reasons because I want people to understand. Like I don't want them to just stop the behavior. I want them to stop whatever it is that's causing them to do the behavior, right? Because that's ultimately what's going to make it stop, is if they can stop whatever the cause of that is. So like if we have something going on where I'm like, okay, in the next role play, I need you to not do this, this, and this, or create a character like this, and this, because the results when you do that are this, and this other thing. Like I tell you all of that because I assume that you're an intelligent adult that wants to do the right thing, and you're going to look at that reason and be like, oh shoot, well, I'm doing that because of this other thing over here, and that's really what I need to go fix, you know?
Yeah,
So, but you can't do that if I don't give you the reason why.
exactly. Or if even if you just give the reason why is I dislike this, then like it's like, okay, I'm so sorry that you dislike this. That doesn't give me anything.
Yeah.
Like even if it's a half reason, you should I mean it's communication, right?
Yep.
You don't have to over explain yourself, but you should explain your thinking
Yeah.
and your position so that someone can then make the reasonable decision on top of that.
Yeah.
Because the choice is that when you are approached either as a player or as a mod, in these situations, you can have a reaction. You're entitled to that. And that reaction can be good, bad, or indifferent. And then you have to sit there and be like, okay, what am I going to do with this reaction?
Mm-hmm.
Because if this reaction is like I'm really angry or I'm really hurt or I don't like this and I don't like this rule or whatever, you have two options. And that's either do what you've been asked to do as a player or leave.
Yep.
Those are your two options.
Yep. Yeah,
And you
really.
either do it or you don't.
Yeah, really. I mean, that is what it is, right? Like I think if you don't understand why someone's asking you to do something, then I think it's valid to ask more questions. But
Yes.
because roleplay, oh hey Lunar, because roleplay is a club, it's not really a job. Like nobody's paying you to be here. You don't have to be here. That really is kind of your two choices. Like
Yeah.
if you don't like it, like you can express that, but at the end of the day, your choices are either to make the change or to leave. It's not because it's just for fun. Like there really is no other choices at the end. So I know that there's something. Well, some of the things that first time mods really struggle with is when a player wants to argue with them. So I always try to come at it from a place of like when a player is arguing with me, what my assumption is always is they had some other horrible experience with some other admin and they don't understand me yet, right? So I try not to take it personal when a player does want to argue with me, when they don't want to do what I want them to do, and they choose, and this is usually how it ends up. They choose to do the thing I'm asking them to do, but they're gonna do it with a chip on their shoulder. Like they're gonna do it, but they're gonna do it and complain about it the whole time, you know.
Yep.
So when I have those type of reactions, I go in understanding that okay, this is probably a conversation I'm gonna have again. It's going to come up again because they said they're going to do the thing, but they're not happy about it, and so that means they're probably not going to really do the thing, or at least not in the way that it needs to happen. So I think when you're a mod and you're having these conversations, like understand that some people are going to treat you based on how they have been treated by people in the past that has nothing to do with you. And it can be really helpful to take a step back and take a breath. And one wonderful thing about online communication is it's all text and typing. So you can really think about what you want to say. And that's a tool I use all the time. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been having conversations with a player or conversations, with people about something that needs to change and I don't like what they're responding with. But I get that time to really think about how it is that I want to respond to that, you know? Um,
Yeah. I also my also advice in this when it comes to like players arguing with you, um, that you should be working it out, communicating with your mod team, seeing how far people want to push, but at the same time, you are the mod team.
yeah.
And so if you want to, I think there have been times where we have, and I think it is totally appropriate to sit there and be like, no, this is it. There is no arguing. Especially when it comes to like character creation.
Yeah. Oh my God.
How many times we've had people try to like bend our rules or break or try to convince us and argue with us that what we're searching for shouldn't be what we're searching for. And there is a point in time, part of being a mod is sitting there and being like, that's the way it is, buddy. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Sorry, not sorry.
I feel like apps is where it comes up a lot. Sasha says, trying to figure out whether I've argued with Karen. You're like, I don't know. I mean, I try not to argue with people, right? I try to always make it a conversation. It only becomes an argument, when the other person makes it an argument, if I'm being frank. Um, but I feel like
When they
applications,
disagree with me.
I mean, like I just don't think I argue. I just try not to argue, right? Like I'm always trying to just have a conversation, because I'm open to having my mind changed too. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot. It happens. But when I think about like
I'm
app,
not. I'm right. I'm right 100% of the
well,
time.
that's true.
I mean,
But I
yeah.
do think character applications is one of the places where like that
Oh my
conversation
god.
comes up because people's characters are very personal to them, right? And they don't want to hear that you don't think this aspect of their character or that aspect of their character is okay. Um, if I think about when we very, very first opened Atlantis, this is long ago enough and it was private, so I don't think this is revealing anything. But we had a player that wanted really freaking bad to be in the role play. She was very, very excited about it. She loved supernatural creatures, but she refused to place it in our world. She said, "Well, my character's not a vampire; they're a Dhampir." And I said, "We don't have Dhampirs in this role play." And she wrote me back this long ass thing about how disappointing it was and how she couldn't believe that she wasn't allowed to play her character. And I'm like, "You are allowed. You just can't make them a Dhampir. Make them an actual vampire." But she wasn't having it. She's like, "But that's not my character." And it's like, "But this world doesn't have it." Like she just could not understand. And it turned into just the conversation got dropped and she ended up leaving. But like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make a whole new species for you when me and like six other people have spent days making sure these species are appropriate and balanced. I'm not going to make a brand new one for you. I'm sorry. That's just not how this role play is structured.
Yeah.
So
And it just
like sometimes you do
it's
have to
part
say
of
that.
it's part of your job. Yes, you try to, as much as possible, try to find the counterpoint, try to make it so that people will stay and work, but it is your job as a mod to sit there and be like, this is what it is. Change or don't change.
Yeah.
And that's a skill you have and have to learn when you're mods, because I know some people are not good at that. They're
Mhm.
not good at sitting there and being like, and not wanting to like work with someone.
Yeah. And I
Um
think and I think also like knowing when to pull out those tools and when to be more gentle is a skill that you'll learn over time.
yes,
It's not something you're going to get right the very first time.
I agree. Because we are running a little short on time, I do want to move to the next
Oh yeah,
section.
we ended up talking
And
about this one so much.
this is learning how to be Elsa from Frozen and letting go. Thank you. I've been waiting all podcasts to make that joke.
Oh my
Um,
god. I love it.
you have to learn how to let go um, as an admin and or mod.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
is the hardest lesson I think I had to learn as a mod. Um, when LOOH closed, I had a very tough time letting it go. In fact, one could argue that I did not let it go for a very long time. Um,
No
sorry,
comment, but
flashbacks, had more flashbacks. But you have to learn how to let go. Period. End of story. You
yeah.
go ahead, Karen. You can expand.
Okay, so this is a skill that I think is really, really critical when it comes to adminning and modding a roleplay. Things are going to happen that you cannot control because a roleplay only exists with lots of people in it, right? Like you can't roleplay by yourself. You have to have other people and you cannot control other people. Like you can do your best to give them the tools to do what you want them to do, but at the end of the day, you cannot make them pick up those tools, right? It's like the phrase of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? So that's how it is in roleplay. You can set up the roleplay and set up everything and you hope people do the right thing. You can't make them. Okay. So with that in mind, you're going to have times where people that you want to stay in your role play leave. And you have to be okay with that. You're going to have times where you realize everyone's bored of this role play and it's not working anymore and I have to close it. And you have to be okay with that. Like, these are just things that are facts of life if you're adminning and modding role plays for any length of time that lasts like any that really lasts any like significant length of time. I see a
Yeah.
lot of first time mods doing this thing, like this very specific behavior. I see it a lot. Someone left the role play. They're very upset because their numbers went down, or they're very upset because they really liked that person, or whatever the reason, they're very upset. Someone left. They feel a loss and they get upset. And they go chase the person down and they ask them, "Why'd you leave?" And they
Oh god.
think, they reason in their heads that this is a good thing because it helps them learn how to do better next time and retain players better. And this is just completely flawed logic. You should not ever be asking someone why they left your role play. It's the same reason you should not be ever asking someone why they don't want a second date with you. Like, the answer
Oh
is
no.
not helpful, right? The answer is not helpful. You are lying to yourself if you feel like they're going to give you anything that's actually useful. They're not. They're going to give you the roleplay equivalent of your eyes are too far apart. Like, you don't want to
Yep.
hear that. You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear, I left your roleplay because your best friend that's also in the roleplay, I hate their guts.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get good information that way. All you're doing is putting pressure on them, right? And I think that if admins that are doing this behavior were honest with themselves, like, you're not asking because you want to improve. You're asking because you think the number of players you have says something about your power level or who you are as a person or your goodness or something like that. And it
Cool.
doesn't. It doesn't. So like this behavior of like I want to keep and retain people as long as possible does not match with the collaborative nature of how roleplay works. Like those two things cannot exist. You cannot think to yourself about how you're going to grow your power and also run something that is truly collaborative. So, when it comes to being a mod, you have got to learn to just let it go and move on. If you can master that skill, then you're going to avoid so many annoying first-time mod habits. So
And
that's
that
my
is
that's my main spiel on that.
yeah. And and when we say let it go, we mean for everything,
Yeah,
right?
everything. Yeah,
Someone
everything.
breaks the rules once, let it go. It matters what rule, it matters how comfortable it is. If someone's being truly bigoted, then like don't let that go.
Yeah.
But if someone like sits there and I don't know, doesn't use the right term for money, let it go.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't post on time for an activity, let it go. Don't be angry at them. Don't hold it against them. Let it go.
Yeah. No, it doesn't mean that
Um,
you don't activity check them, right? Like, but don't harbor
yeah,
that. Don't harbor that inside of yourself.
let it go. If something in the lore, if someone writes something in the lore that doesn't add up to what you had thought about the lore, let it go.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't.
Um, because like not everyone's going to get it perfect. And you're not building a real world, right? Especially when it comes to lore. I think lore is one of the big things that it's like if you've worked hard and created this world and you've world built and you've thought of everything that you could possibly think of, and then people are coming in and either changing things or questioning things or ignoring it, then like you want to be very protective of this thing that you've helped build and create.
Hmm.
Um, you don't own it. Not everyone lives inside your head, and not everyone can retain all of that information. So just let it go.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It's not worth sitting there and saying, "Oh, actually, in Atlantis," to every single person, "Oh, in Atlantis we use credits, not and chips, not money."
Yeah.
Or the dollar sign. Like it's not worth going up to every single person who's used the dollar sign, me included, by the way, in response and say, "Hey, actually, we don't do that."
Yeah, like most of the time it's irrelevant. Like I'm not saying like you shouldn't correct lore mistakes. There are definitely times that you should, and some players are going to care more about that than others, right? But you don't have to correct every single little lore mistake. Like if you're thinking of going and correcting a lore mistake, you have to think about, does this actually matter to the grander scheme of things? How might this make this player feel? Because if you've got somebody that's making like lots of little lore mistakes that don't really matter and you're constantly pinging them for it, the effect that that's actually going to have is not to make them take the lore more seriously. The effect that's going to make them have is being scared to write because what if they get something wrong?
Yep.
Right? And then
And
they're
then
just not going to role play and they're going to end up getting activity checked and kicked out of the role play because they just stop role playing.
your control over the situation became more important than a successful role play.
Yep. So Sasha
And
has a
that
good.
is
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I say Sasha has a good comment on that. People who are obsessively defensive about their lore or worlds or characters are usually looking to be very deeply fulfilled by it. Yeah, I mean, I do think that. And that's why I get really nervous when I see mods and admins do things. And this isn't always bad. Like sometimes this is fine. But sometimes this is a red flag for this behavior is when they say, like, this is my world that I'm going to write my novel on. And then I think, like, oh no, how attached are they to this world? I am scared now for my involvement in it. And this isn't always the case, right? Like sometimes they are doing this and they still have that healthy detachment and it's like all good. But I have seen more often than not that when you have somebody that feels like that about their world, then their world is like their baby, and it's not going to work out for you if you want to put your own little spin on it because you want to do this fun other thing that you notice that they didn't notice about their lore, you know? Um,
Mhm.
so that's kind of that's also part of the let it go as well. Like if you're an admin and you created this role play, understand that the moment you open it, it's not yours anymore. It's now everyone who joins. Like it's you
Just
do not own it.
yep. And like part of that too is uh sorry, had a thought, went away. Never
Sorry.
mind. No, you're good. Oh, God damn it, it was so good.
I believe it
Oh,
was.
consistent. Here
Oh
it is.
yeah.
Um, you are trying to create a world that is consistent among anywhere between, for us at least, 8 and 13 people.
Mhm.
Do you know how hard consistency is between 8 and 13 people?
Hell, consistency is hard between two people. Like my god.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like, people are not going to be consistent all of the time,
Yep.
and that's okay. You have to let it go. Like,
Yeah.
if someone is saying one thing over here that, the bluffs are, calm and everything like that, and over here someone is saying the bluffs are rocky, um, it doesn't matter. Like, as it's part of that. Like, that consistency, you have to just let it go.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's
And
it's
I
one of
think
those things where it's important to give people the tools to be consistent, but understand
absolutely.
not everyone's going to pick up those tools and use them. Like there's going to be problems. There's going to be people that just don't put in the effort, that don't care. There's going to be people that do care and still just make a mistake because it's a lot of information. Like there's going to be mistakes like that, and it's not a big deal. And I know that when you're first starting out, it's hard to know what is a big deal and what is not a big deal. Typically, what I think of is like, okay, if I make this a big deal, what's the result that's actually going to happen? And I try to think about it from that perspective. And if that result is not something that I really want, then I don't make a big deal about it, right?
Yep.
But but if it's something where like the result is going to be some improvement for the game, then maybe I do make a big deal about it, right? Like if they're doing something that really affects a lot of other characters and really screws things up, then maybe I make a big deal about it because it is going to be a net positive. But if it's not going to be something like that, then the only result that correcting lore is going to have is to make them feel anxious about making mistakes. So then I don't. Lunar, oh no, I'm not sure what you mean, Lunar, about what you were going to do because, like, I mean, I absolutely allow people to add and change to the world as they see fit, and I think that's like how you should do it. You know, like when I make a role play, like Landon's seen it before, I write down just the bare bones of what I want, and then like my mods add stuff to it, right? And then after they add what they want to it, then we release it to like the players that were in whatever the previous game was, and they add to it. And even after we open, we'll still
Yeah.
spend the first couple of months adding and changing things, you know, because even though I maybe had like 7 or 8 people look at it at that point, there's going to be something we missed because this person wants to explore this other facet that no one really found that interesting. And so those questions didn't come up.
Do you know who's queen at
Oh,
that?
writing a book,
Sasha.
writing a book. Yeah. I, oh, I
Sasha. Oh, I
understand.
was saying Sasha's queen at that. Like, they came up with the
Oh, all the a bunch
fairy
of stuff
food, the
about.
pig stuff.
Oh no, Vi came up with the stuff about the fairies, and
You're
then
right.
Sasha came up with a bunch of stuff about pixies, and it was really just because
No,
nobody that joined at
peanuts.
first,
Yeah.
yeah, nobody that joined at first was super interested in those, and so it just didn't come up. But their ideas were great.
Yep.
Oh,
And then Marty
yep,
Mark.
Yep. And then, yeah, oh, Luna, you're talking about writing a book. Yeah, I personally wouldn't recommend it. Now, I'm not saying that just because you want to write a book in that world means that you shouldn't make a role play in that world. Like, everyone's different, but you have to think about yourself and, like, can you let it go? Like, you have to understand that the role play world that you make and the book world that you make are are going to diverge at some point, and you can't stop them from doing that. Right. So if you can internalize that, if you can internalize that those two worlds, even if they started at the same place, they're going to diverge and be okay with that, then I think it's fine. But if you're not fine with that, if you're going to constantly have the book world over here and take the role play world and constantly push it to the book world, like that's not going to be good because it's going to stifle your players. So that's my advice. If you do want to do something like that, how you can potentially do it to cause as few problems as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you expect them to go in different directions, then I think you're probably going to be fine. Like what I really see with this issue is people that like are literally using the role play as inspiration for their book, and their world is so precious to them that they can't imagine them being different worlds, and it causes all a whole cascade of problems.
I very quickly, because we're about to be at
Oh my
an
gosh, it's
hour
almost 2.
50, I wanted to talk very, very, very quickly about letting go of an RP when it's done.
Yeah.
And then we can go into the good news.
Okay.
Um, that when activity starts being low, when people are starting not to take as much of an interest, when people aren't talking about the RP in the chat as much, it's time to let go. And it's time, and as map mods, you kind of get that extra time because you get to make that decision. And then hopefully, if you still have active players, you are able then to announce it to the players, and then they can have that time to wrap stuff up. But that doesn't always happen.
Yep.
But it is part of the thing that it is better to allow your players and yourself to write an ending than to just end it one day.
Mhm.
It's part of the letting go.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like I do know admins that instead of closing an RP and opening a new one, what they'll do is just like, oh, it's low activity. I'll just, advertise a bunch more and kick out all the inactives, right? And they handle it that way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think that the reason why we do it our way and the reason that it works so well for me to just close it and open a new one is really has more to do with me
Yeah.
than anything else. Like, I have so many ideas for different worlds, and I could not imagine not exploring those. And like, I get bored, right? Like, I can't imagine being interested in the exact same world for years and years and years and years and years, right? So like, I think that if you are somebody that wants to keep the same role play going for years and years and years, you have to understand that there's going to be lulls, and that when those lulls happen, it is incumbent upon you to get all of those inactive people out that are bored now. It might hurt, but they're bored. Get them out. And then advertise like hell to get new people in that aren't bored with your role play because they haven't played in it yet. Right? So that's the other strategy that you could potentially use. But either way, it requires having a skill of letting go, whether that means closing the role play and making a new one, or it means like, hey, this person clearly doesn't care anymore and they're just kind of hanging on. You got to get them out the role play. Like, if they don't really care anymore, they shouldn't be there, you know?
I
So, yeah.
I also think it matters what you find important.
Yeah.
Are you more connected to the story, in which case you want the story to keep going and find new people to play out this story in this world? Or are you more connected to the people playing within that story?
Yeah.
For us, at least for me, I'm more connected to the people within the RP. I want to continue to write with you and Naomi and Vi and Sasha and everybody in the RP.
Mhm.
Um, and Kendra, hopefully, if she comes back. Uh, but I I want to keep writing with those. So of course I'm totally down to move on to a new story. But if I loved Atlantis and that was the story I wanted to write, then yeah, figure out how to get new people in there. Figure
Mhm.
out, out with the old and with the new. And that's okay too. There is no right way. I just know for us, I think it works best to start over because that's what we're there for, is to play with each other rather than the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Sasha brings up a good question, finding out why people are are bored. So definitely like that is something that I did early on when I noticed this pattern happening of like
Mhm.
eventually we'd get bored with a role play. And that was a question that I asked, and I found pretty consistently it was just that like, once people kind of see where things are going and they know kind of what's going to happen, like a boredom sets in because they've already done all of the imagining that they want to do, right? So that's how I know it's time to start a new game, right? And that's very, very typical for our group. You might find different whys for your group. So I do think that that's probably a good tip, like to go and find out like why your people are bored, especially if you're coming from the perspective like we are, that what's really important to you is to continue to write with those same people if you possibly can. Knowing why so that maybe you can make a better role play next time that people don't get bored with so fast. Um, excuse me, that's important, right? And I know I've made role plays that only lasted a few months because I had flaws in how they were set up, you know. So doing some of
Yeah.
that, finding out some of that information, is helpful for making the next role play.
I also think it's important to acknowledge for the people who are going to be listening that right now is a really tough time to RP in the world.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, and we've talked about this in other VODs and stuff like that. So I don't necessarily think we have to dig into it, but there's a lot going on that
Mm-hmm.
is taking up a lot of brain space and making it really hard to write and focus on fun hobbies and activities.
Mm-hmm.
So it is tough. If everyone here is experiencing a lull, that's normal. That is what is happening in the world. Um, for us, it was kind of the opposite too, is that when this all began, we saw a huge increase of activity because people had more time.
Yep. But then as kind
And
of the
then
dread has set in that this is our
yeah,
world now, that has not, that's not maintained. And I know like there's a couple of people in our role play right now that are experiencing, various things individually that, they've told me about. And I'm not going to call anyone out, of course, but like I hear that and I get it and I know things are like super hard right now. As far as a lot of people are dealing with depression, or even more serious things that I'm not going to talk about because I don't want to like trigger anybody. Anxieties, maybe
yes.
something crazy has happened in their life. And that's like the world is crazy right now. And so that is for this specific time in history, that I think is totally normal.
But I think this is something that comes with practice and a reason why I don't think we ask anymore why people are bored. Um, the writing's on the wall. When you get there are times, at least for us, at least that I've experienced, is that once I've been bored of an RP, I'm bored of it. It's very, very hard for me to get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Same.
and that's just kind of how it is. And I've seen that and noticed that with other players too.
Yeah.
And you kind of just read it on the wall and you know what the signs are, you know what it looks like. Players are unique, but not that unique that you can sit there and be like, oh, these are all the symptoms that happened before, and before that, and before that. And I know what is coming. So let's make the best of it.
Yeah. Well, also like the other thing that because we have pretty good communication, like people just tell me. I don't have to ask.
That's true.
I get y'all's DMs that are like this thing just happened in my life or maybe nothing's happening, but my oh my god, my depression's coming back like crazy and I did this and this thing and screwed this up, and so I need some time to go deal with that or whatever it is that happened. Like at this point, like I don't have to ask, like they tell me. But if you guys are if you're like a first time moderator and you're a lot newer to this, then you might need to go out and really ask that question of your players that, oh, I didn't mean to hit the mic. Sorry if that just made a horrible noise.
It
Um,
didn't.
it, okay. To go out and ask your players, like, what is going on with you? Why has your activity fallen off? Because if you haven't built that up, if you don't have that experience yet, it's not always super obvious. And different people behave differently. I tend to attract to my role plays a very specific type of role player, and so therefore, I kind of know. If you attract a different type of role player, if there's like a different type of person that tends to join your role play, you might have a totally different experience than what I have.
Oh my god, Lunar, I'm so sorry about that.
Oh my
Sorry, I just read
God.
what you were saying.
Yeah, I just read it
Oh,
too. That's
I know that
awful.
yeah, that is terrible, and I am so sorry. And that is just that's God. I hate bad mod teams.
Yeah, that's yeah, big cringe, like super cringe. Like why? Like that's one of those things that's very like let it go to me, like posting in the wrong place. Like I can't imagine like making a big deal out of that. Like if it was really egregious, I feel like I would just DM that person and be like, "Hey, so sorry, can you move that post to whatever the correct place was?" Like I can't imagine saying anything more than that. So that's really like yikesy. I would be
Yeah,
wary. That would probably turn me off. I don't think I'd be interested in the role play after that experience.
and even if you did, like, even if you, that did happen a lot, then obviously there's something wrong with the basic design of your RP if it's happening quite a bit.
Yeah, like if
And
people
then
keep making the same
also
mistake over
build,
and over, it's not their fault. It's your setup.
yeah. And then you also build tools to make sure it doesn't happen so that, yeah, you have a copy and paste thing that you sit there and go, hey, sorry, you put that in the wrong place. Can you please put it over here? Or let me link this to the rules. I know it's a common mistake. I mean, you be kinder about it. You don't just be shouting someone out. Ugh.
Yeah, that's
But
yikes.
I understand the anxiety there. But maybe who knows? Maybe you'll join one of ours. That'd be fun. Anyway, we are
Yeah.
at like 2. I hate to do this, but we are at 2 hours, so we do have to
Okay.
get out of here very
Um,
quickly. I just don't want to go on too long.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I want to end on time. I'm gonna go ahead and save the game. I didn't make a huge amount of progress. Unfortunately, the thing I'm trying to do right now, the pinatas I'm trying to get, just it just takes a lot of time for them to come visit your garden and join up. So it might take a few more episodes before I'm kind of at the point that I want to be with this particular garden. I'm trying to get buzzinges and eagle airs, so we'll see. It just takes them a minute. All right. So let's hit the pause and save. All right. And then we can go and open up our article.
Yes. So this is just a it's just a fun little thing because it's spooky season or it's going to be soon. Ha 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 ha.
Oh, it
Um
is.
and so I just was like I have been seeing a lot of memes about what we're going to do with socially distanced like trick or treating and stuff like that, and so this was a good one. My suggestion was to throw candy at children because that sounds like a lot of fun. But this guy, he built a chute down his railing to just like pop in candy down that way. And I think that that is I truly believe that this is the wonderful.
Oh my
So
God. I love
totally
it.
share it with everybody.
Oh, there's a video.
We're
Okay,
going to
here
show
we
you how
go.
to make a super simple prop that's going to let you give candy to trick-or-treaters from a safe,
Good
Oh,
morning,
six-foot
wait.
America.
away from all the
That's
little...
true.
I don't want to. Sorry, I'm muting it because I don't really want to how to. I just want to see the candy slide down. I'm going to try to find where the candy slides
I think
down.
it's doing is it gonna do it right now?
Oh,
Oh, maybe not. Who knows? But anyway, you put the candy in there, it slides on down. It's just a fun little thing.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing for trick or treating in our neighborhood. Usually our neighborhood does a trunk or treat, and I
Oh,
just don't see how that's going to be possible with social distancing because literally, like you park your cars in a parking lot and like you still have the kids walk around and you hand out candy. So like I just don't see it. Like even if you just put the bowls of candy out and people like kids could dig around in it, like I don't know, sorry if this offends anyone, but kids are freaking gross.
yeah.
Like I can't imagine like kids digging around in a bowl of candy one after the other and it not becoming a problem.
Nope, it 100% has to be, like, something like this or just throwing candy at children.
Yeah, I mean, let's pelt them. I think
Or,
that
I
sounds
mean,
good.
here's the reality is that there probably won't be much trick-or-treating this
Yeah,
year.
I doubt it. I don't think that anyone if they try to even put on the trunk or treat, I don't think anyone's gonna show up. Like for real. I just don't see it. I don't see how they're gonna I just don't see it.
It makes me very sad because I like children in costumes.
Yeah,
I think it brings me much joy.
yeah, I mean, I'm not
I
like a kids
understand.
person. I don't, I most of the time like I'm okay with kids for a small amount of time, but I want to give them back to the parents, right? But I love the kids trick or treating. Like I like to look at their cute costumes. They get so happy they're getting like a bunch of candy. Like I don't know, it's really fun. It's really fun to pass out candy to trick or treaters, so I am sad.
Okay, Sasha, the reason why I said I don't like oh, you like children in costume. Sorry, I read it as adults in costume, and I was like, I'm still planning on doing like a socially distanced graveyard thing in costume. So that's why I'm like,
Oh,
I'll still get to be able to celebrate Halloween, but the children won't get to celebrate Halloween, and that's the worst.
yeah. Oh, you'll have to take pictures. Um, Usually my office does a trick or treat that's really, really fun where like the kids come into the office and go around to the cubes and like we have a whole like costume contest. Like we did Pac-Man last year. It was freaking amazing. We
That's so
almost
fun.
won. And but of course we're not even in the office, so we're not going to do it this year. So I don't know.
I'm hoping I'm hoping at the school the kids will still get to be able to dress up, but I doubt we'll be able to do like a parade or anything like that. So
Well, maybe you can still get candy and like before class starts put it on their desks or something.
yeah, I'm gonna make goodie bags.
Yeah. Because at
It'll be
least then
very
they're
cute.
they're not digging around in it. They just get their individual bag, and that's as close as best as we can do.
Yes, and I will quarantine it and I can make it before. So it will be quarantined and stuff like that too for the kids.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably
Yeah,
that's probably a good plan. This is
it
cool though.
is.
I really really like this candy shoot.
It just brought me joy this Halloween season.
Yeah, I guess if your neighborhood is doing trick or treating, this is something you could do. So that you're not, because in my mind, I was like, I guess people are just going to put buckets on the porch and you dig around, and I thought that was an awful idea. But this is way better.
It is.
Yeah, a candy
Much,
shoot.
much. A candy shoot. And then that way you get to see the little children in costumes.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, we should wrap it up.
Okay, so go back to webcam only. So that's our show today, guys. Thank you so much for coming. We're gonna just chill for a minute before we close down. Also, I want to let you guys know that I finally ordered an actual webcam. It should be here in a couple of weeks. So I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be doing these streams on the potato camera. It shouldn't be too much longer. Hopefully, only a couple weeks tops. With COVID going on, shipping is still crazy, and the thing said it would take 10 to 14 business days to get here, and like I believe it. Like it might really take 3 weeks to get here. But
That's
yeah, but it's like a nice Logitech HD webcam, so I will have something that actually looks decent. It's still not going to look as high quality as the spare room episodes that go up on my channel, but it won't look awful like this does. So I'm very, very
so
excited
cute.
about that.
So excited.
Yes. That'll be really nice. Um, and then where you can find me. So I have a role play help show that I do every Wednesday on YouTube. That's called Spare Room. It goes up on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. on my YouTube channel, which is just Karen Terry. And I also started another show. So the way that Twitch works is to get to the point where I can actually make some money on Twitch. I have to stream at least 7 times a month. So I started a second stream. It is on Thursdays at around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, and it's just really a space for me to kind of like do whatever. Some other stuff. I'm still planning on posting the VODs on my YouTube channel for most of the episodes, but who knows, because that one is really not super structured and doesn't have nearly as much of a plan. I don't know that every single VOD will be posted. So make sure that you are following down below if you're interested in hanging out with me on Thursday evenings for that show. That one's called Artistic License because it's my artistic license to do whatever the hell. And then of course there's this show, Interstage Window, which I do most of the time with Landon, sometimes with Naomi, every Saturday from noon to 2. And this is our more like, deep dive into some kind of more serious role play topic type of discussion, or at least a topic that we think would be helpful for role players to hear about. The other place that I actually, post content that's not just like reposts of videos is on Twitter. So if you want to follow me in my, adult over 18 space, that's where all of those things go, as well as hot takes like you do on the Bird app. And then I don't have very spicy takes, so it's like don't expect a lot, but I have like maybe a few. And then also you can join
There's been a few ones.
a few,
None
yeah.
of them surprising, there's been a few ones.
They might be surprising if you don't know me very well, but if you know me, then they're not that spicy. Um, but there's some things on there sometimes. And then also, you can join the Discord, which is down below. Down below the Twitch. Oh, text message.
That was
Down.
me.
Yep.
Thanks.
Down below in below the Twitch, there's like a little about section, right, with all the things, and you can find a link to the Discord. The reason why that is important is we do often have guests on this particular show. So if you're interested in potentially being a guest, then what you want to do is join the Discord. Every Friday, I make an announcement about what the topic is for this stream, and if that topic interests you, if you feel like you have a lot to say on it and you want to actually come on, like on voice, not just the chat, let Landon know, and she'll get you all set up with that. And that's all the places that you can find me. Landon, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Land in Maine. It's a pun, so it's not spelled like my name. It's Landin Maine. And then you can find me also on Twitter under that same name. It not nearly as active as or cool as Karen, but still kind of cool.
You like a lot of my tweets, so your Twitter is valid.
I'm just like a Karen simp, actually. That's just what my Twitter is. I also I am teaching right now, 5th grade. I still have some things on my Amazon wish list, so I'm gonna pump that out to you. And yeah, so you can find that on my Twitter and Instagram too. So that would be awesome. But if not, no problem at all. I appreciate your, support by just listening to me talk and banter with Karen for a little while. I think that that's mostly all the places you can find us.
Yeah, I think that's it. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. We are going to go ahead and close down the stream, and make sure that you join us next week for another cool, fun topic. Thank you guys so
Bye,
much.
guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to be awesome.
Woo! And make it a great day.